Dora. Hi, Arlene. Hi, Michelle. Welcome, welcome. Really good to see so many faces. I love it when like the waiting room's already full before we get started. For folks that are joining, my name's Tila, and I head up partnerships at Think Human, and I'm tuning in from Charleston, South Carolina. So I would love to know in the chat, where are folks dialing in from? Would love to see. Where are you dialing in from? If you're in the southern states, I'm sure you're gearing up for the storms and things that are coming. Where are folks from? I like this New Jersey, Rodney, of course, New York, very cold. I guess I should not complain. I love it. A lot of folks, okay, Tennessee, we got Calgary, Canada. That is awesome. I love to see an international crowd. Well, I just want to say a welcome to all of you. It's really nice to see so many smiling faces on this Thursday. And folks that are just really interested in joining us for the conversation today on AI powered leadership. So we're going to talk about like, what does that mean? What does it look like? And how can we really get better at our work? So there's a lot of really great things to unpack. And so excited to do that with all of you here today. And as always, we definitely want to keep things going in the chat throughout. So continue to ask each other questions, share your learnings with each other. I mean, really, in our experience, a lot of richness in the conversation happens in that chat. So don't be shy. So before we dive in, I have a few housekeeping items for folks. So first, we're going to actually drop a link to our code of conduct and community guidelines in the chat. We just ask that everyone be respectful and considerate of each other and differences of opinion. And as you can see, this is being recorded, so we will be sharing this after the webinar. And at the very end, we will be sharing the SHRM and HRCI codes. So definitely, stay tuned for that. And then I also just wanted to take a moment to really just shout some folks out. So, this webinar wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for the joint work of the team here at Think Human and our incredible partners, Biz Library and Power to Fly. So snaps and big ups for everyone on the team. So at Think Human, we're a leadership development organization who focuses on training leaders. So this topic is very near to our heart and in the work that we do. And Biz Library has an incredibly powerful L&D platform with some best-in-class content that really is helping organizations support their growth and learning. And our third partner, Power to Fly, whose mission is really to help organizations attract talent and retain engaged employees by really simplifying that recruitment process and driving business success. So towards the end of the webinar, we'll actually launch a poll. So if you would like to connect with any of us to help your organizations become AI powered, please do. So without further ado, I don't know about y'all, but I'm very ready to dig into this topic about AI powered leadership. So we're gonna actually launch a poll right now, because just to get a sense, like, how are people in the room feeling about AI? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you inspired? Is it a mixture of all three, depending on what point of the day or point of the week? So really excited to see where folks are at in their journey. And as people are marking their answers, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator for today's discussion. And this is going to be Meredith Haberfeld, who is the CEO and founder of Think Human.
Hello, so good to be here.
All right. See you, Meredith. Have a great chat.
Absolutely. All right. Welcome, everybody. Really happy to have this conversation today. And we are going to jump into a conversation with some awesome expert panelists about AI, not as a personal productivity hack or an organizational effectiveness to speed efficiency, but focus on how HR leaders can operationalize elevating leadership quality across levels. So that's what we're talking about. And this is not TV, so please get into the conversation, be in the chat, ask questions, share insights. This is a lot of wisdom here in this community, and we're excited to have you in the conversation, not just watching or listening to the conversation. So at that, let me have our amazing panelists join the conversation. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Good to have everybody here. All right. Let's do a quick round of intros, who you are, what your role is, and then pass it to the next person so we don't have to jump over who's going next. So let's start with you, Paul.
Perfect. Super excited to be here. Paul Eschen, head of marketing at Biz Library. We are an online learning library and AI-powered learning platform company. So I am, I've been in this business roughly 5 years. Things that I'm super passionate about that connect to the topic today, trends in this space around talent development, kind of what's happening from a behavioral standpoint. And then I'm really passionate about the fact that marketing and HR are very similar. We're very much in support departments that are fighting for budget, fighting for relevance, and those things that I feel very empathetic to this audience, as well as my perspective from being a member of the C-suite. I think I see many of the challenges that folks on this call have today, and might have a different perspective on that. So very excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me, and I'll kick it over to Rodney.
Thank you all. My name is Rodney Scaife. I'm the head of people with Emerson Collective, where I oversee the human resources department. Emerson Collective is a company that invests in entrepreneurs, innovators driven by purpose and a sense of possibility. We're working to create a world that honors talent, expands opportunity, and ensures that conditions of human flourishing. And I will turn it over to Christina.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Duke. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Customer Success at Power to Fly. Based out of Houston, also known as Space City, Power to Fly we're a global recruiting and retention platform, and we help companies build high-performing and inclusive teams. And we actually have an active global community of over 2 million mid to senior level professionals. Our focus is really on, again, those mid to senior professionals in technology, go-to-market, and G&A.
All right. Thank you, awesome panelists. And let's get down to it. So let's start with what's the difference between AI for efficiency and AI tools to improve processes. That's one category. And on the other side, AI complemented leadership. And why does this distinction matter for organizational leaders trying to scale leadership capability? So what's the distinction? And then also, what are some examples of leadership skills AI can support? So how about we start with you, Christina?
So I think the biggest distinction is like, what problem are you trying to solve? So, AI for efficiency, that's about time and scale. Generative AI, automation, workflow support, that helps us all like move faster and our teams move faster. And that definitely matters because as a leader, I mean, I feel overloaded sometimes and just even freeing up time, that's really like a prerequisite for innovation and creative thinking. And if I'm drowning in work, like there's no place for that strategic type thinking. But AI complemented leadership, that's not necessarily about speed. It's about like judgment and improving like the quality of your thinking. And so like as a leader, it's like our job to define strategy. Then we translate that strategy into execution, and we have to hold our teams accountable to executing, but we have to do that in a way that actually still motivates them and develops them. And so AI complemented leadership is what, when we leverage AI to support the thinking underneath those decisions, and it helps me like be more consistent, less reactive, and more intentional. And time permitting, I'm happy to give like some concrete examples, but just to make sure we have time for the other panelists too, where I've really seen it support like my core leadership skills has been around like strategic thinking, communication, and decision making.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christina. How about you, Paul?
I agree. I mean, I think you nailed it, right? I mean, efficiencies, how do you do this faster? Leadership is what actually matters here and matters the most, and why, and how am I going to approach it? To your example, and where I've used it most coming from marketing, and I don't think it's that different in any of our fields, is the ability to kind of like what I'd say is like create an MVP much quicker. So many of you on this call are content creators. We're all content creators in some way, whether that's an email or a business plan or a learning and development plan or whatever it is. And the ability, I just did this with an industry report we're working on to create based on my perspective and prompts, here's what this needs to be, and validate that across many stakeholders to quickly get consensus. Whereas the old way was having a conversation, feeling pretty good about it, maybe handing that work off to someone and then not loving the 50 or 80% of the way there weeks later and having to backtrack. I think it does, it allows for, and you spoke to some of the skills, but the AI truly allows for more clarity, more preparation, and more sense making in a way. Like, and I think that's super helpful to all of us because you spoke, Christina, to like, we're all so busy. It gives us time back to actually be more prepared and help translate what's in our head to help us be prepared, which I've really valued.
Amazing. All right, Rodney, you're
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, as you all might imagine, overseeing a human resources function, workflows and processes, that's the nature of how we operate at our core. And yes, it is very valuable. AI has been very valuable in helping us to improve those from an efficiency and effectiveness standpoint. But from a AI, how it supports leadership, I utilize it in supporting all my strategic thinking, my strategic planning. I think Christina mentioned communication, and really it becomes the agent that works alongside me. That allows me to be able to master more than one thing at a time. One of the examples of how we utilize it this year was we built a GPT around our OKR process. And this is a process, if any of you have OKRs, can be a very arduous process. It takes a lot of time building out your North Star and your objectives, your key results, and how you're going to get the work done. But we built a GPT that really allowed us to enter our North Star. What is it that we were looking to accomplish with each objective, and what are the expected outcomes? And literally within minutes, it would spit out an entire plan for the year. And then you would take that and go back and just scrub it to make sure put it in your own words. But that was a way that we utilized it from a strategic planning standpoint for our goals for 2026.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So some of the things I hear, just to summarize that last, like my big takeaways are having it improve our thinking rather than improve a process. And that can mean creating better judgment, better decision quality, more clarity, the space to do more sense making versus AI for efficiency, where we're improving processes, but not necessarily improving our own thinking quality. So how has AI complemented leadership changed how you are personally leading your team and where you and your leaders are seeing the biggest wins? And what shifted for you personally? And again, let's keep it in that category of how it elevated leadership, either yours or other team members. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, I think I spoke to it a little in the first answer, but I feel like, they say like giving you back time in the day to work on the business and not in the business, like that is by far the biggest one. I think we so frequently get caught up in reactive mode to the point that, hey, it'd be great to think of all these strategic things. We just don't have time. I mean, Rodney, what you shared is super relevant to anyone building any kind of plan for the year and holding yourselves accountable. So we leverage it the same way for marketing planning and strategy and campaign build outs. And I'll say like what I like when ChatGPT kind of came around and this idea I kept hearing of like building a custom GPT was so like, what does that even mean? That seems stressful and like I don't even know how to do that.
Mhm.
Not complicated, but I think the big like lesson there is what are you trying to accomplish? And then you're training the AI to very much focus with your prompts on that objective. And one example kind of connected to that that has really helped us is you think about the marketing world in your organization, your core values and core approved messages that sales can use, right, Christina, and that everyone in the organization is speaking the same language. Um, a custom GPT we created to basically say, this is how you talk about Biz Library, and this is what that means, and this is approved language. Um, Endlessly helpful and something that in the old world, a brand guideline book that you've all seen and that no one ever looks at, those things would take you months and you deliberate over them forever. But now it's, hey, based on all the content we put out over the last year and our website, help us think through who we are. And there's your North Star and your baseline. So it's really helped us for clarity on the marketing side of identifying who we are and making sure everyone's on board with that.
Christina
Yeah.
or Rodney, either one of you
Yeah, I
jump in.
think, that Paul, those are some, great, examples. I think one of the ways from a leadership and not only just leading the team, but really allowing you, I feel like it allows you to address multiple things faster at a, in the same time period. When, you think about if you have a challenge coming up, you have a meeting coming up with different leaders for different topics, you're able to easily go in and put your prompts in to prepare yourself for multiple meetings. And that just frees up a lot of your time for thinking. And so when I wake up and start my day, I look at my calendar. So I enter my calendar into my GPT and suddenly it looks at my calendar. I prompted for what I want this particular meeting to be about, what I'm looking to gain out of that meeting. And it spits me out a plan at that point for each day, for each meeting, and for the week. And I found that to be incredibly helpful from a leader, and not only for myself, but also how I manage my team, with that and how I manage the meetings on my calendar. So it's been incredibly helpful from a leadership standpoint for me in that way.
And Rodney, I hear you using it to elevate your ability to plan your
Yeah.
day strategically and to run effective meetings.
Yeah.
How are you cascading that through your org so others are also elevating that skill themselves by using AI?
We're getting there. We
Uh-huh.
have we're not all the way there yet, but I have a few leaders that I've shown them that approach. I work with them, on their schedules because everyone's very busy. We're not there completely, but what I do is at least for the meetings that I know that I'm engaged in with them and some that I know that they're having. They may not do the entire calendar the way that I'm doing it, but I have helped many leaders prepare for certain very challenging and difficult conversations and meetings that they have coming up, that they may have a little apprehension about, a little nervousness about. But we're baby steps, but we're definitely getting there. But we do have some leaders that are adopting it, as we've, as an organization, built out our, enterprise-wide chat GPT in 2025.
Amazing. Paul, Christina, before you jump in, I would love to hear from the community in the chat. How are you leveraging it in yourself personally or in your organization, not just to improve processes, tools, or functions, but to elevate leadership? Please get into the conversation. We want to hear from you. There's so much insight and wisdom you all can share. So looking forward to seeing anything you can share in the chat. And now over to you, Christina.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll piggyback a bit off of some of the things that Rodney touched on, which is, you know, that AI complemented leadership in terms of like how the changing how I lead my teams. Like it's allowed me to have that faster synthesis of complex information. I'm better able to prepare for conversations. Um, and I'm able to have a more like consistent decision-making framework across my team. But I'll I'll give a concrete example of this from like my experience in sales leadership. And so last year we had to fundamentally change our B2B messaging. We're a recruiting and retention company, but we have a global community of individuals, as I mentioned earlier. And actually, 80% of our community members identify as women, and over 70% identify as people of color. That's historically been framed as DEIB. And almost overnight, like that language changed and it became like legally and commercially risky. Side note, Power to Fly is completely compliant with the executive order. But I'm in a position as a sales leader where like I can't personally monitor every conversation that my reps are having or how deals are moving through the pipeline. And so, really, where I leveraged one of our AI tools, it was around like helping me spot patterns. So it showed me, are reps using updated language? Why deals are stalling? Where are they stalling? Perhaps where things are causing friction, like later stage. And this insight, it actually allowed me to lead more effectively and not necessarily like invasively, like being that manager that's trying to be part of every conversation and micromanaging. And what's shifted and where it's really helped is it's actually changed like how accountability works on my team. And that's where I've really seen impact because often, I mean, as a sales leader, I'm having to hold my team to like very strict KPIs. And often like we see accountability being reactive, if a deal stalls or somebody misses their quota or they're not hitting their KPI, like I will step in and it can be emotional or frustrated and that's not productive. And so through this, like by surfacing these patterns, I was able to really start to identify where issues are for my reps earlier and more calmly. And now my reps, like they know that they're being coached on patterns. It's not like they're being punished for one-off, moments. And we have the data in front of us to show us that. And so I think the important thing of that too is that from the rep side of things, like when they know that they're being coached on patterns, they're not being punished for one-off moments, they're able to see the data, like that actually reduces defensiveness and it can reduce burnout too. And that's really what contributes to increasing performance. And so, to close out, I guess just like on a personal note, as a leader, what AI has really helped me do, it's helped me become more consistent and I'm less reactive, I'm less emotionally taxed. And I'm more focused just on clarity of judgment rather than trying to control every moment or every conversation my reps are having.
Woo, a lot of good stuff there. Coaching. Oh, were you going to say something, Rodney?
Yeah, I was going to ask Christina, interesting you mentioned the DEI and the executive order, and just as a leadership, as an organization, I'd just love to hear a little bit more how you utilize AI, to really help you be compliant with that particular executive order.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a legal chat GPT where we like to run all of our contracts and
Yeah.
language, but the reason actually it really wasn't so we are leveraging like those GPTs
Yeah.
in terms of like the language that we're using, making sure that it doesn't like present liability, but as it pertains to like why we're compliant and how we've remained compliant, it's because like our community, yes, happens to be like demographically made up, as I stated, but anybody can join our community. Like it's open to all. And at the end of the day, like if a company we partner with hires somebody from our community, that hiring decision's made on qualifications, nothing else. So I know that's a bit of a long-winded response, and I don't know if that's like exactly the answer that you were expecting, but hopefully gives some insight into like at least how we leverage it in terms of, yeah, mitigating risk.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. That was perfect. Yeah.
As the moderator, I'm going to jump in with one way that we've used it. My COO and I is at our quarterly planning sessions, we each share a developmental area, a strength and a developmental area with one another. And then we use ChatGPT to go to work on our development area so that we have like a built-in coach. So for me, for example, I'm working on when I'm training team members in something, making sure that the message lands. She gave me the feedback that, not that this matters, but just for the purpose of the story, she gave me the feedback that I'm putting too much out there, that people aren't taking it in. Like they're not able to pick up what I'm putting down because I'm putting too much out there. So I was like, okay, got that. I can go to work on that. And each time I'm teaching something, I'm using my my AI best friend to support me in elevating that skill. So would love to hear anybody in the chat before we keep going, if there is a leadership skill you've been working on that AI has helped you with. And we got a ton of interesting things already in the chat. So if you haven't been reading it, please do. And now let's talk for a minute about some of the challenges. Oops, got ringing going on. Some of the challenges that you see organizations facing right now, whether it's your own organization or as you're talking to your peers. What are organizations, as we move from the experimentation phase with AI complemented leadership to real execution, adoption, maturity? What are 3 challenges or a handful of challenges that are proving hardest to overcome? And any of y'all, please jump in, and we want to hear from you in the chat too.
Hey, if you guys are okay with me kicking off, I came ready with stats for this one, Meredith.
Great,
So I'm very
amazing.
proud of my preparation.
We all love numbers.
There's a really interesting PwC does like an annual survey of executives in top 500 organizations, and their survey last year was fascinating. It was all, obviously many questions on AI, and what I found most fascinating, and I think it directly connects to this question, is surprise, surprise. The majority of CEOs admitted that they overpromised AI's impact and underdelivered on profits, efficiency, and productivity based on what they projected. This is going back to 2024. Additionally, and I find this to be ultimately like the biggest red flag that leads to the challenges, less than 1/3 of CEOs are systematically integrating AI into workforce or skills. Less than 1/4 of them into core business strategy. Where they are implementing AI is business processes and technology platforms, right? So I feel like that's flipped from how you would generally run a business. Rodney's creating OKRs, I'm creating a marketing plan, whatever it is, AI would be core to that business strategy. But I think by virtue of how quickly it came about, it was flipped. So you didn't get the messaging right. You didn't get that message top down on how we're going to use it and how it's going to be implemented into our business. So I'm finding more change management challenges than anything. And the reality of AI is it's not a technical launch, right? Like it shouldn't be a tech product launch. It should be a business process improvement launch and an operational model launch. And that is just functionally, I mean, these CEOs said, right? Like, and I don't know about your guys' organizations, it's very common, isn't what happened because everyone saw the productivity gains and all of the benefits and ran that way first. And so that's what I see the biggest challenge is just communication, clarity, change management from the top down, and having that message be consistent. That's hard enough to do with anything in an organization. AI, to your first poll question, makes it so much harder because myself, like everyone who responded to the polls, I'm all 3. I'm excited, I'm nervous, depending on what I read. I feel like I'm behind, I feel like I'm caught up. It's exhausting, right? And so we're all feeling the weight of that as individual employees and humans, plus the weight of all of the things that are likely diluted or confusing still from the top down.
Yeah. Oh, Paul, I'll just, piggyback off of that like really like there's this challenge of like confusing AI tools with what is truly AI transformation. And so like you mentioned, like a lot of individuals, they're experimenting with AI on an individual level, drafting emails, summarizing meetings, but like execution, it requires changing how actual decisions get made. And like we saw this firsthand, like when we were trying to shift our sales messaging quickly, right, due to external factors. And like AI tools, getting the right tool to surface those patterns and all that, like that wasn't the hard part. It's like the hardest part actually was aligning leadership on what patterns really mattered. And then how are we going to like act on this consistently?
Yeah, I think for us that, I can echo what Christina and Paul said. It's some of the challenges that you face, and we launched it, enterprise wide. It is being utilized. That's great. You hear everyone talk about the new AI, how it's helping in all these different areas and ways within their team. And there's benefit to that, but I think the change management and how to thread it through, through organizationally is where I've found some of the biggest challenges. There's sometimes also challenges. One of my areas that I of concern is around, security of data and what information that you enter into the AI. I do know there are ways of, quote unquote protecting it, but someone who's worked in the tech space over the years know that once information is out there, how can you ensure that it's safe? So you have to really think about what type of company information. And so that's an area that really has me concerned on the security side as well.
Oh,
Can I take
please.
you back too? Like, I think what Rodney, what you just shared made me think of is ultimately when we talk about AI skills for management, which is what this is about, the managers that are going to win are practicing skills like empathy, authenticity. And I think that's the challenge, right? It's like, I actually understand that you're experimenting and you don't have all the answers, and you're creating a safe space for employees to play around with it and not fear their job. Because yes, I agree. I think the gap is productivity to actually what that means. And okay, yeah, shouldn't you be more productive? Like that's generally what you hear from leadership, right? Like, well, you should be able to get that done in half the time. What does that mean? Do you need all these people? What does it look like? And it's like nobody has that measurement piece, I think, hammered out. And it requires even more empathetic leadership at the top.
Yeah.
I think but we'd be remiss to leave this question without just acknowledging that like data readiness and trust is a huge important thing of effectively like implementing AI transformation. I think there's like a programming term, it's like garbage in, garbage out. And we work directly, yes, with HR and talent acquisition, but we also partner directly with a lot of like technical leaders. And I was talking to a CIO the other day, and one of the things that she was talking about was just like how she and really other key stakeholders across the organization just underestimated like how fragmented, biased, and like stale their data was.
Yeah. We got a bunch of challenges on the board for us to talk about, and would be wonderful to hear from you all in this community, your challenges in the chat, so that we can make sure to address some of them. I want to talk about the change management part for a second, because there's change management, like the change management bucket includes how do you get new processes in place? How are you, like you, Rodney, getting the GPTs built so that the whole OKR process could be improved, and then how everybody utilizes that, and whether that's, pick your process, whether that's in marketing, sales, the OKR process, org wide, we're improving processes, and there's the change management around that. And then there is the, let's call it leadership development that needs to happen, of getting leaders oriented to using AI to elevate their leadership, not to do things for them. That too, of course, but not just like let me offload this to AI, but instead let me use AI to help me get better at whatever the thing is that I'm doing that, and then the change management around that. So we had talked at the beginning of this conversation about AI complemented leadership being, it improves your own thinking. I think somebody in the chat mentioned something about how we make sure we keep humans in the loop, and what are your ways of doing that? So to the panel here, how are you dealing with change management around keeping humans in the loop, knowing what those guardrails are, and then getting leaders to use AI, not just to push things out into the world, but to elevate them?
Yeah, we started with having wide trainings around it. We had spent literally a quarter just having, sign up whatever you need to really understand AI, and what it means for your particular business. Because we have, if you look at across Emerson Collective, we have very unique lines of operation. And so it really helped to at least galvanize us a bit from a change management standpoint, that everyone was hearing the same message, everyone was getting the same learning around AI and getting the same kind of guidance and direction. It still has its challenges. We all know change management is not a perfect process, but I felt like that really helped us along, and we had our tech team design those trainings along with legal, HR. We were involved with setting the parameters and guidelines for the trainings. That helped us a lot from a change management standpoint.
I'll piggyback on that. I think it's the biggest concern, right? When you mix, Christina, what you're talking about, which is kind of reputability of the data and ethical use and understanding what it's sharing with writing what you're saying, and in the chat, Marina, you hit the nail on the head. Like there aren't even the policies yet to govern some of these tools. That's my fear because I think we're such a society of being first to market, and I got to launch it, and I got to launch it, so we have a competitive advantage, and there's natural, pitfalls to that. But I actually like kind of playing devil's advocate with this question to what I shared earlier. Maybe for right now, it is okay that we are all generally upskilling our people, its skills and its employee development, and it's leveraging systems and people that for specific use cases are leveraging AI in a way that's helpful to you, whether that's in your LMS, your HRS, your sales and marketing tools. They all have great AI capabilities that feed up information, organize it much better than I could on my own. Maybe that's okay. And for right now, those use cases make a lot more sense while we try to figure out the where does AI fit in the operating model and all the bigger piece of our business that's a challenge enough without even AI to transform.
I'll share at Think Human. We have something called the OWN framework, which is offline thinking is the O. So after using AI, close the tool and synthesize on your own, like step away from it. And then the W is wisely use your taste. So AI can present a million options, but that doesn't mean they're good. So using a brand voice, ethical standards, design principles, but you have to be in the mix to wisely use your taste. And then the N is nurturing human ownership, double checking facts, reviewing AI output, making sure the deliverable is aligned to your own thinking. So that's one governance measurement we've put into place. Other thoughts in the chat about ways that governance is being successful, would love to hear. And Rodney, from your perspective, is there anything you've seen that's really, really helpful? Oh, before I do that, it looks like somebody.
I was trying to synthesize. I love that,
Okay.
but I didn't get the end either.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, Rodney, anything else you've seen be really useful from a governance perspective?
Yeah, I mean, this is a challenge, no doubt. This is a significant challenge around the governance because AI it's constantly evolving. ChatGPT, they are every day are constantly evolving. All of these platforms, and the moment you think you have good governance in place, AI can take you actually a bit further. So what we've tried to set up the best we can is kind of a checkpoint on things for different leaders, different teams across the organization. If they have questions, we have a triage between legal, between HR, as well as our tech team. If you don't understand or if you're hesitant to put certain information in, you have outlets there that you can at least reach out to someone before just moving forward. But this is a significant challenge to governance component, Meredith, that I've been seeing out there.
I'll just add, what we did at Power to Fly, and we're a small, lean team. And so, something that I've talked about in the past or with this group is like treating AI implementation as like something that actually needs like a product owner. And, having that cohesiveness across teams. Like I said, we're a small, lean team, and really the approach, we don't have that right now, but like the approach that we took, and this touches on things that came up in the chat, is like we knew that there was going to be shadow use and people are going to invest in their own AI tools. And so instead of trying to stop that, we took the approach of let's educate people on how to appropriately use these tools, what is considered like confidential or private information that like you should never use in prompting. Um, and yeah, I think like understanding that there's always going to be that shadow use, and instead of trying to stop it, making sure that when people do that, how are they doing it in a way that like doesn't open up more risk for the company.
Anything else y'all want to say about shadow use? I just think shadow use is such a critical issue. And when really anything that stays underground becomes problematic, right? Like as soon as things go underground, all of a sudden you got issues. So any thoughts on how to move the shadow into the light in this area?
It's
Yeah,
tough. Oh, go ahead, Rodney.
yeah. I mean, I think, one thing that we're doing, even at, the team, how we're building our team on our tech team, we're creating a team called a studio team that really focusing on areas like that, really understanding, hey, what are all the potential pitfalls? What are the opportunities? They're really like a workshop and just really spending time and really understanding what platforms are being used, what are the possibilities from a shadow use standpoint, just try and get ahead of it by troubleshooting and things like that. This AI world is almost, there's a degree of ungovernance there now that this is frightening, and trying to chase it, we have found to be difficult. And so that's not a perfect solution, but it is a solution that we've realized that you need people on your team within your organization or a partner org that actually can help you really put a focus on that. And I think to Christina's point earlier, treat it almost like a product where you have someone that owns it, that owns it and lives in it
Yeah.
every day.
That ownership does keep coming up as a theme, that if you don't have somebody owning how this happens in the organization, you're invariably going to get people splintering off in a million directions. Not that people shouldn't be experimenting on their own, but why we're doing it, what success looks like, the governance, it just becomes fragmented, confused, and some things will go underground. So really appreciate that having that owner creates some of the clarity and answers some of the questions, Paul, that you raised about I guess the whole load of questions about where should it be human, where should it not, where are the boundaries, guardrails. If you have an owner, somebody then has to come back and answer those questions. Paul, any other thoughts on the shadow usage?
Um, no, I mean, I think you guys generally covered it. At Biz Library, it's a committee across revenue operations, IT, and then leadership that try to, as best we can, kind of govern all uses of AI and consolidate it so that it's not the wild, wild west, but still early stage and still, a complicated question for sure.
I
All right.
think just
Oh, wait.
Meredith, I was just going to add, just to answer your question, like around like, well, how do we address shadow usage? Will we bring it into the light? And I think that really starts with like dedicated time as a team talking about what tools you're using and doing it in a place that it's like a forum that isn't, it encourages AI usage. Understand, and again, we're a small organization. I get it. In bigger companies, there's probably more governance, but doing it in a way that where people aren't afraid to talk about what they're doing, because there's a lot of fear around AI usage, especially for example, if I admit that I'm using AI, is my manager going to think that I can be replaced with AI? Are they going to think that I can't do my work well enough? There's or are they going to load more work onto me because now I've been talking about how I'm like using this, efficiency tool. And so I think the more that we can encourage talking about it in a non-judgment, non-punishable way, is how we bring it to light.
Hey, on that note, I think so connected to talking about AI in a healthy way is, frankly, my perspective for many of us that are some form today from 5 years ago, hybrid or remote, the very important conversation about measuring productivity overall and many roles that aren't, I think about like an IT coder where you've got dedicated hours that I know exactly what you're doing. or if you work for an agency and you're billing time or whatever it is. But many of us, in learning development, HR, marketing, sales, like your time is your time. So these tools are actually just opening up questions that are, if done right, healthy about what did productivity look like before? What could productivity look like after? And how do we address what else you can do and get more for the company or whatever that means that's good for you and good for them?
Oh, Paul, I'm so happy that you brought this up. Can any one of you panelists talk about what work slop is? It's something that came up in a previous conversation, and I think it's such a important point about A, what is work slop, and B, how do you give a framework of thinking to people so that you avoid it? Anybody jump in from the panelists. All right, Paul.
I'll share the
Yeah.
there's a Harvard Business Review article from last year which is just a great term, AI work slop, that Tila knows I find hilarious. But I think we all experience it, right? And the whole thing was about they interviewed a bunch of managers, and these managers admitted, hey, I get about 4 hours a week back from productivity, which honestly, frankly, I'm like, that feels about right. 4 hours of time back, maybe more. I'm not doing anything with it. Nothing more productive, nothing more strategic. I'm not even using it for mental or personal wellness or upskilling or anything. And that's terrifying, but I also think honest, and I think inherently the challenge that we all have as leaders or managers. And depending on your role, maybe that resonates. Maybe you are actually doing more productive work. But it mostly concerned me when I think about like work-life balance and wellness, that at least, even if they weren't contributing more to the business, people admitted they were going on a walk 1 hour a day in those 4 hours. That could be viewed as positive to their contribution to the organization. The fact that they don't know exactly where it's going is part of this challenge.
Yeah, and I think also when you think about work slop and that frame and creating a framework, uh, folks are just running off and just doing things and taking the AI, not synthesizing the output, not really entering the right prompts. And yet I've had it where some folks were even presenting that information to me. And it's like, okay, this is AI. I can tell by this, and I think what you find is people is trying to produce more. They're trying to produce
Yeah.
more things, more stuff, more output. Because to Christina's point, there is some fear, right, about AI taking people's roles, and I've heard that a lot in the HR space. And so I think creating the framework is like you share with your team when you're going to engage with AI, it should be engaged from the standpoint of this is what our OKRs are. These are what our objectives are. These are what our key results are. It should be shaped around targeting and addressing specific needs of the organization versus you're going out just randomly thinking you're trying to find this new way of doing work. And I think creating the framework is just we discussed that as a very hopeful way for folks to not just go out and just get lost in AI world.
Right. You'll see for anybody who clicks through that HBR article that Tila put in the chat that talks about work slop, something that I found so fascinating in there is people are producing more work because of AI. They're just able to produce things faster. They push it out, and then it's creating more work for other
Yes.
people because it's messy
Right.
and not well done. So
Yeah.
people now are having new problems they didn't used to have trying to sift through that garbage. So the governance and the training and the bringing things from the shadow into the light and then
Yeah.
getting people to do the synthesis on their own rather than putting the garbage into the world, all that I think, all the things you all have been talking about are such critical pieces to have this change management process move effectively. Let's talk for a second about organizations that are successfully moving into operationalizing the leadership component. So whether that's getting people to elevate their decision quality, elevating people's ability to create strategy documents, to have challenging conversations. So organizations that are doing this in they're past experimentation and they're into execution and mature, or maybe nobody's in maturity yet, but like the beginning phases of maturity. How are they operationalizing that kind of shift? And what are you seeing about it? What an enablement look like? What were the minimum guardrails? Who owned it? So any examples?
I don't know that I have examples of someone who's doing it great. I think we're still very early on. I have seen some individuals that I've met in my in different, peer circles that, I'm involved in where at organizations where they're making it a priority. They wouldn't consider themselves doing it great, but they're really, going leader by leader and utilizing AI to help those leaders, and how each individual, what are the gaps? Very similar to what you spoke about earlier, and enabling them. But I wouldn't say that we're there from a maturity. We're definitely not there from a maturity standpoint, but I do know of a couple of organizations that are being very intentional about it. And I've been staying in touch with them because I want to learn for myself. How do I start to really enable leaders to embrace it from a leadership standpoint versus just a work output standpoint? It's so easy to do that and get lost into the work output standpoint, focus. But
Yep.
I'll let Christina, Paul chime in. Maybe they've come across an organization that is there, but I
I
have not
mean,
come across anyone that's just completely there yet.
yeah, and we certainly aren't either. But I think operationally, like even just speaking from what we did at Power to Fly, like we anchored the AI to like a real business problem. Um, in our case, that was like messaging alignment and like deal quality and any friction that was coming up like late stage. So yeah, I think, wherever you're able to actually tie AI usage back to like a core business problem, that also contributes to being able to measure its effectiveness.
I love that. I think the exact same. I think where it's working well for us, specific use cases where AI could make the product better, the business better, and those arise, and you go, okay, could AI help? And that's a healthy conversation. Um, I um, I feel like, and I'm not like the best at this yet. So I feel like I have a lot of learning to do. But it's being curious yourself and researching yourself is everything, right? Because like this morning, and part of prep for this, which was exciting because it made me do a little more research. I found a site called Lovable, and Lovable will build you a custom website in 10 minutes. I literally just gave it information about myself and was like, build a personalized website for me. And 10 minutes later, it was better than, and it got me, and it was better than anything I could have created. So my natural inclination taking Lovable and seeing what it did is to now share that with my team and just go like, this is fascinating. What do you think? Is there any application for Biz Library's marketing website with a technology like this? That is a lot more natural curiosity, openness, empathy than if I just said, when they showed me something, couldn't AI do this? Right? So it's like, experimentation, and it has to start with leadership in order to create a safe space. Otherwise, it looks very much like being accusatory, right? And like the opposite of that, and creating kind of like cortisol rush and fear. So like that would I'm like even coming to terms with how important that is from my example this morning. But we have to experiment ourselves. And then I agree with Christina. Specific use cases that make total sense for AI, because the use case, similar to what I shared, makes sense to people versus and makes them feel like co-creators of it based on their functional area and what they can contribute to it.
All right, so if I want to wrap that up in three things that came out from this conversation, it's having a use case or something real people are wrapping it around. So one moment to pilot, one guardrail. So what stays human, or how are you putting some governance around that? And then one practice loop to close the loop. So it's not just like, hey, send people off to go do something and don't know how that closes. So I'll also share one implementation that we've done at Think Human is we have something called the power prompt. I just put it into the chat. And so when people are struggling with or facing a leadership challenge, whether that's decision velocity, strategic thinking, a challenging conversation, this power prompt is a way that they can not need to have a very specific prompt to the situation, but that they can get into the work of elevating their leadership around that thing. So what I'm going to do quickly now is ask that the poll gets shared. If anybody wants to hear about any of the partner organizations, Biz Library, Power to Fly, Think Human, please let us know that here. And while you are doing that, amazing panelists and community, thank you all so much. We're going to wrap up with, I think we maybe only have time. I'm going to try for 2 questions. We might only have time for 1. So let's do this. What practical steps can leaders coming out of this conversation take to start integrating AI complemented leadership in a way that enhances human leadership, and that they can do it this week? Like, it's not a big strategy they have to start, but like a 1 step that they can put into place.
One thing I would say to that is identify one particular issue that you want to address, right? And then start working with whichever AI platform that you're working with, and start just prompting it and creating the prompts to help you come up with a solution, and test it over and over again. And because what happens is the more you actually, continue to refine it, the more clear the outcomes and the solutions become. So that's the one thing that I would say. If you're not just engaging with it, take one business challenge that you're faced with, and just take it and just really just practice on it and practice on it.
Paul or Christina, jump in. The one thing.
Stay curious. I'm not a technical user, a technical background person. And the way that I've really like built my AI skill set is, yeah, by staying curious, downloading different AI tools, clicking, you see that button. I'm like, what happens if I click here? What happens if I do let this prompt? I mean, Rodney touched on this. It's like the people that will understand AI the most are the ones that actually use it the most. And I refer to this book. It's by Ethan Mollick, and it's called Co-Intelligence: Living and Working with AI. If you're a non-technologist, highly recommend reading this book. And it talks about how AI is the jagged frontier. There are things within the boundaries of what it can do, and there are things outside of the boundaries that it can't do. And we don't necessarily know what those boundaries are. And it's the users that practice, try, test. They're the ones that are going to really understand like the nuances of AI, where it can be impactful, and then where it falls short. Over to you, Paul.
Wrote down the book. Absolutely love that. I don't have anything near that good. I'd say for personal use, start. I feel like that's the hardest part. I mean, I literally every week am like, I'm gonna do more this week with AI. Like, yeah, I've got some use cases at work. I'm using ChatGPT, but like really understanding like my lovable example, like what else is out there and how can I leverage this to actually make the business better? Not doing near enough of it. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the big one. Get started if you aren't, and educate yourself a little bit every day. Easier said than done.
Thank you to everybody here. This community is awesome. So many insightful things shared in the chat to these panelists. Christina, Rodney, Paul, thank you so much. For anybody who is looking for the SHRM code, it's coming into both the chat and also in the follow-up email. And may everybody have a really beautiful rest of your day and week. And goodbye for now.